Reading with your kids.
Hola, ni hao, konnichiwa, assalamu alaikum, shalom, jumbo, bienvenidos. Hi, my name is Jed Lee, and this is the Reading with Your Kids podcast. We are so delighted that you are joining us today on the first day of hurricane season, and we are celebrating by welcoming back Paul Deanno, the meteorologist for CBS San Francisco and the author of the Wild Weather series. He's back today to tell us all about wild weather hurricanes. Hey, for all the authors that are listening out there, I wanted to share with you this great email that we received here at the Reading with Your Kids podcast from Dr. Linda Mubarak. She is a past guest and the author of Maxine's New Job. Here's the email. Dear Fatima and Jed, good news! Maxine's New Job has been nominated to receive the prestigious Henri Award at the 2018 Christian Literacy Awards for Outstanding Literacy Work in the Children's Book Division. I sincerely believe your certifying Maxine as a great read helped bring increased social media attention to the book. Thank you for the exposure and the great marketing. We are so happy for Dr. Linda Mubarak that her book, Reading with Your Kids Certified Great Read, Maxine's New Job, received this prestigious recognition. We would love to help your book receive that same kind of recognition. If you are interested in having your book considered for our Reading with Your Kids Certified Great Read program, please visit our website, readingwithyourkids.com. You can click on the contact button, send us a note, and we'll send all the information back to you, or you can go right to our Certified Great Read page on our website. It's fun, it's easy, and it is really an effective way to let the world know that your book stands out above all the rest. The Reading with Your Kids Certified Great Read program. Joining us on the line right now from beautiful San Francisco in California. He's returning. We're real excited. He is a Reading with Your Kids Certified Great Read author. He is also the meteorologist for CBS San Francisco. Please welcome back the author of the brand new book, Wild Weather Hurricanes, Paul Deanno. Paul, how are you?
Doing great. Thank you for having me on, and it's good to be back. Really enjoyed the time we spent together last time.
It is good to have you back, and we are releasing this podcast on the first day of hurricane season, and what a better way to celebrate than to have you come in to talk about hurricanes.
That's perfect. Yeah, it's likely going to be a busy year, and weather has gotten kind of crazy the past couple of years. So I think it's top of mind for a lot of families and hopefully kids as well. And hopefully my book will help educate them.
Yeah, it really has been a crazy weather cycle here in New England, especially here in Boston. Spring didn't seem to happen until May 21st. we had,
well, welcome to spring now.
We had more warm days in February than we had in April. It was insane.
It's really strange because I think what we're learning in a changing climate world, let's just take that as a given, that the temperatures around the world are warming in many locations, and the difference between here and there is changing. And what we're noticing is that people thought, oh man, it's just going to be warmer all the time. That's not the case. What we're learning is that it might be more extreme most of the time, but extreme doesn't always mean warm. I think what we're finding out in places like New England and in places like California and in places like Seattle is that in the wintertime, extreme weather might mean snowier weather. Extreme weather might mean stormier weather. Extreme weather might mean colder weather. You know, we have this term, global warming, which is thrown out there, and maybe that's not the term we should be using because it's what I'm seeing is more extremes, both cold and hot, both warm and cold, both dry and wet. We're just seeing more extreme weather as opposed to just one direction, like just saying warm. It's not a one size fits all change that we're witnessing.
And that's one of the reasons I really love having you in here to talk about this. And I'm really happy that you're creating the Wild Weather series, because weather is what's always been a very important aspect of human life. But now that it's changing so much, I think it's really important for our kids to have a better understanding of weather so that they can make good decisions as they move forward as to, what kind of policy to have.
I agree. And we have this thing called YouTube, which is the most popular television channel on earth right now. Mm-hmm. And you Google weather and a lot of stuff comes up. Number one, it's not all accurate. Mm-hmm. Number two, much of it is scary. Mm-hmm. Number three, a lot of it's not for a young person, 5, 6, 7-year-old to digest, but we don't have those, filters on things like YouTube yet. Mm-hmm. So, I feel like as a meteorologist and someone who spends some time on television and radio on a regular basis, part of my job is to kind of pull back the reins and say, okay, all this this is an information age where you can find out almost everything on everything within 5 seconds. Mm-hmm. But what should you believe? Mm-hmm. I think there's an information overload, but there's a very, very significant lack of trust. Sure. We don't know what's true. We don't know what's right, even though we're getting informed more than ever. Mm-hmm. So, my goal, not only on television with what I do there and on radio as well, I'm hoping these books can kind of set the framework. This is not a doctoral thesis kind of book. This is for 3 to 9-year-olds to get a basic, I want to build that foundation of understanding for weather. So then as they get older, they know what the basics are. Mm-hmm. So they can build on that and kind of discern, okay, this is good information. This isn't, but I know the basics because, I read this book from Paul.
Absolutely. And I absolutely can attest to the information you're talking about YouTube. Kids come up to me all the time telling me, I know how to do your magic trick. I saw it demonstrated on YouTube. And then they start explaining what they saw. And I'm like, kid, you have no idea. I don't know what you watched.
Well, we're all YouTube experts now. Everybody can work on their car. Everybody can build a house because we watched a 5-minute YouTube video, right?
We're not even going to get into that. But,
yeah, right.
So what kind of basics do 3 to 9-year-olds need to know about hurricanes?
Well, I think the one thing that I start with whenever I go to a school and I talk to kids at schools, on a weekly basis about hurricanes, they know hurricanes are big, mm-hmm. but I don't think they can really grasp just how big they are. And the first chapter of the book, it just talks about, how wide they are, that they are wider than you could drive in half of a day. The example that I use when I visit a school in Northern California is if one end of the hurricane was over your school, the other end would be over Disneyland. And that's, 6, 7, 8 hours down the road, south of Los Angeles. And they're like, wow, I didn't realize they were that big. I knew they were big. I didn't know they were that big. And then the other, I think one of the more interesting facts that I use in the book to try to, bring it to a kid's level, but also, something that an adult can appreciate as well is that one hurricane, the wind energy from just one hurricane could generate enough power to power half of Earth right now.
Wow.
Yeah, that's how big we're talking. Is that one hurricane? If we'll never be able to harness that energy, but the wind energy inside one hurricane could literally power half the power needs of Earth today.
Wow, incredible. I have lived through many a hurricane, and thankfully me and my family have been safe, although a number of my family live in Puerto Rico, and they were devastated by Hurricane Maria last year.
Mm-hmm. It's in a warming world and in a changing climate, what we're seeing is that the possibility for a storm to become a major hurricane or even a category, a major hurricane is anything category 3 or higher, but the most damaging storms are your category 5s, which is a direct correlation to wind speed at the center of the storm. What we're finding is even in a hurricane season where you don't have as many storms because it takes a special kind of environment to stir up a tropical system. Mm-hmm. Even in a year where we don't have as many named storms, the propensity for those storms to become huge and very damaging has increased. Mm-hmm. So what we're seeing is the category 3s, the category 5s, the category 4s, the Hurricane Andrews, the Hurricane Hugos, they're becoming more common than they were before. Mm-hmm. And, it's always, we don't know where they're going to go, but when you get a direct hit like we saw in Puerto Rico, that can be just absolutely devastating. Mm-hmm. We hope that doesn't happen, but it's more likely to happen in this world that we're living in.
Now, how exactly do hurricanes form?
Excellent question, and one that I can't give you an exact answer for because nobody can give you an exact answer. What we do know, we kind of know the recipe. Mm-hmm. We know the recipe is that you need to have an area in the tropics where you warm ocean water, and not just warm at the surface where we're swimming. It has to be warm to a particular depth. So you have to have warm ocean water, and it begins kind of with a cluster of thunderstorms, which can happen hundreds of times, over the tropics in any one hurricane season. Now, why do certain clusters of thunderstorms begin that rotation and become what we call a tropical system? Why do some not? That's the part that we're still trying to figure out. But we also know that not only do tropical systems like really warm ocean water, something that I taught in the book. Okay, that's a really abstract concept for a 7-year-old to figure out, and a 7-year-old's not going to realize the latent heat being released by the condensation coming off of that's for high school and college. But you know what I tell the kids in the book? I say, hurricanes eat breakfast like we do. You sat down with your family and ate breakfast. Hurricanes eat breakfast, but guess what they eat? They eat warm, salty ocean water. Yuck! So that's kind of I try to humanize the event, but also try to bring it to their level. Okay, they may not understand latent heat release, but they can understand eating breakfast. Sure. Yeah. So, hurricanes get their energy from warm ocean, which happens to be salty, which always sounds disgusting to a kid. I always get a big yuck when I mention that in class. But hurricanes also like an environment where they don't have very strong winds around them. They just like a peaceful, warm environment, and they can bubble up, seemingly overnight. One thing we've noticed, too, in a warming world is that they can go from a very small storm to a very large storm incredibly quickly, like we saw with Hurricane Maria. But there's still a lot of research out there. There's a lot of science being done to figure out, okay, why did this one become a hurricane, and why didn't this one? Trying to figure that out. We don't know for sure yet.
You're mentioning talking to kids and telling them that hurricanes eat warm, salty water for breakfast. And that's one of the reasons our panel loved your first book, Wild Weather. And one of the reasons they named it a certified great read is the wonderful way you're able to take these very difficult concepts and make them accessible for kids.
That's part of the reason why I wanted to write the books, is that weather can be and is very complex and very advanced, and it can be something you would tackle in college. Since it impacts all of us, whether you're a kid or whether you're in college or whether you're an adult, I try to figure out a way, and I'll sit down and think about it when I want to write, how can I explain a college-level topic to a 7-year-old? Because I feel like they deserve to understand at least a rudimentary version of it, why they happen. But I can't, you don't talk to an 18-year-old the same way a 7-year-old. You have to bring it down to the level. And thankfully, I'm the son of a wonderful retired who did it for a living brought English and reading down to a level that kids loved. So hopefully a little bit of her magic has rubbed off on me. My mom was for many years, and it's a pleasure to take a complex topic and try to bring it down to a level that, because one thing, especially hurricanes are so scary and they're big, especially if you live in a hurricane prone area like Houston or Miami or Tampa or even all the way up toward Boston. I truly believe that if a child understands or knows a little bit about a topic, it removes that fear. I think the biggest fear is fear of the unknown. I don't know anything about hurricanes. I just know they're big and scary, so I'm very scared. I think some of that fear can be pulled away just with understanding of a couple things about hurricanes. And that's kind of my goal, is to take that fear away from kids, which I think would make the job of mom and dad getting through hurricane season that much easier.
Absolutely. Well, I can absolutely relate to that. I grew up here in Boston, and so I've grown up with hurricanes. So when hurricane comes, I know what I need to do. But I have a very, very vivid memory of my first time being in a tornado area. And I was in a motel down in Florida, and the local weather came on and said there was a tornado warning right where I was. And I called the front desk not knowing what I was supposed to do and said, there's a tornado coming. What should I do? And the very helpful person at the front desk said, pray. And that didn't help me at all, although I do pray. At that moment, it didn't help me at all.
Okay, then what?
Exactly. But you're right. Having that knowledge does kind of put your mind at ease. And little kids, little kids can be terrified of thunder.
Yes. Yeah, I found that. Yeah, it's always intriguing to me when you walk into a classroom and you give a presentation. I know that you visit a lot of classrooms as well. I always find it intriguing to see what are the questions they ask, because I think it'll be about, maybe California being home to the world's hottest temperature, Death Valley. Or maybe I think it'll be about the fact that it never gets hot in San Francisco. You know what it is? It's always about tornadoes and lightning. And okay, if I'm in a car and there's a thunderstorm, do I run inside my house or do I stay in it's just, I love peering inside a child's brain, because what they're thinking is often so different than what their parents or adults think they're thinking. What's intriguing to them, what's scary to them, what questions do they want answered, often are so much different than what we think they're thinking.
Now, you spoke about your mom being a teacher for so long and hoping that her magic and being able to relate to kids rubs off on you. Is that where the inspiration to create the series came from, to make weather accessible to kids? Is that where that came from?
That's part of the equation, absolutely. I'm coming up on 23 years doing this next week, which is an amazingly long amount of time. I don't feel like I'm that old, but I guess I am. When I first got into meteorology, you get asked to go to schools and you get, hey, can you do a career day, or can you talk about weather? And I'll be perfectly honest, when I first started doing it, that made me a lot more nervous than being on TV, because when you're on TV, you're talking to a plastic camera with a guy standing behind it pointing and giving you time cues. When you're talking to a group of kids, it's like 90 kids and they're all staring at you. And it's like, wow, this is more nerve-wracking than, certainly more nerve-wracking than on television. And I've had the pleasure of doing the Today Show with Matt Lauer and Good Morning America, and, talking in front of a group of kids still makes me more nervous than that. But at some point in time, I realized that even though it makes me a little bit nervous to talk in front of kids, that I think of the opportunity that I'm given with my career to kind of influence their lives, and I just love it. Like, I leave every school that I visit thinking, that was amazing. Like, I had a chance to have 90 kids love and science more because they listen to me. And I'm thinking, well, what a blessing that is, to be able to have that platform, that they're actually paying attention and enjoying what I'm saying, and they're interacting. And then, I'll often get letters from the school a week or two after when they're like, oh, I totally want to go in the weather now, or meteorology. And that just warms my heart. So my thought was, okay, I love going to classrooms, but I have a physical limitation to how far times I can go to schools, because I'm a parent. I have 3 children. I have there's a finite amount of places that I can be. But if I were to take some of the concepts and things that I talk about in school and write a book about it, my book can travel to far more places and much farther places than I physically can. So it's almost an extension of my school visits. I have this love for weather inside of me that I love sharing in person. But if it's beyond the reach of how far I can go, my book hopefully can go farther, and my book can go to more places than I physically can. So it's kind of an extension of these school visits, which I absolutely love doing.
That's fantastic. Now, what you said, you've been in the business for a long time, and I know we talked a little bit about the nature of television meteorology and how that's changed. But has there been, what's the biggest changes in our understanding of weather that has happened during your career?
Good question. I would say that the previous, let's separate it into 2 parts. The first part is the weather around us, and then the second part is how we receive weather information. The first part about weather around us is that, I think more people than not agree that, you'll hear this phrase, man, the weather is so much different than when I was a kid. If you're talking to an adult or someone who's, older than 30 years old, whether you agree into the man-made or not man-made or natural cycle, that's something we can do 5 podcasts on in the future. I think it's now a given fact that most people agree that the weather we're experiencing today is different, and depending on where you live, vastly different from what we had, a generation ago. And result, the way we do life. Weather impacts all of us every day. I mean, we just went through in California, it has been super cold and super rainy, and usually the rain spigot gets shut off for half a year come mid-April. It hasn't stopped raining out here. Mm-hmm. And, show me one person out of the 8 million people that live in the Bay Area that hasn't been impacted in some way by the fact that it's kept raining for the past month. And I know back east, you've gone super cold to super hot, and then you had snow late, and then you didn't have snow in the winter, and it's just been, very strange. Weather is meant to change, but the changes that we're seeing recently, have certainly accelerated. And I just think people are more aware of the fact that, it's a little different than when I was a kid.
Sure. Mm-hmm.
Secondly, I mean, man, we could all pop on our phone right now. I mean, I'll do it while we're sitting here. I could have a weather forecast it took me, 6 seconds? 7 seconds. I've got information that used to be relegated only to the newspaper. What's that? Mm-hmm. The newspaper or a television broadcast that you might have to wait. I know, right? That you have to wait until 6 o'clock at night for. Mm-hmm. You can now get on your phone at your convenience anytime you want. Mm-hmm. So we talk about television, and the company that I work for, CBS, we have had to completely redefine what we do as a company, because for a very long time, customers were required to come to us. If you wanted to be informed, you had to watch us, and there were 3 or 4 choices to watch, and you had to watch at a certain time that we told you when to watch. And if you missed it, too bad, so sad, you had to wait for the next time that we told you when we would be on. Mm-hmm. And that notion has completely been turned on its head. Now, rather than viewers finding and chasing us, we literally are finding and chasing the viewers, because all these apps are popping. All this information is out there, which is far faster than any newscast we could do. And certainly it's almost put newspapers, with the dinosaurs and extinct. It's instantaneous information. Nobody wants to wait more than a minute to find out something. Mm-hmm. And, that has changed the way people receive information. And, I'll say this, maybe for back east when it comes to snowstorms, or in the Midwest, especially with tornadoes, not all the information is accurate. I think there was a control of information, which I think had its good points and bad points. But now anyone can type anything on the internet, and somebody might take it as fact. And people are putting out their own tornado watches, which the National Weather Service is the only one who does. Mm-hmm. People are putting out their own winter storm warnings. Once again, National Weather Service. People will issue their own forecasts for hurricanes. And that kind of thing scares me, because now you're getting not information, now you're getting misinformation, and it's really hard to discern between the two. What's good information and what's bad information, because it's all just kind of out there.
Right.
So that was a really long answer to your question.
No, and it's a great answer, and I'm really again glad that you brought up the whole misinformation. Because it's one thing for a kid to go on YouTube and find, bad instructions on how to do a silly little magic trick, but it's something completely different if kids and adults are going out and getting misinformation about the weather. And that's causing panic or causing people to make some very bad choices.
I agree.
Yeah. So if folks want to make sure, other than just picking up wild weather hurricanes, but if folks want to, if they do have they saw something on the internet about weather and they're not sure and they want to check it out, what's the best way for them to kind of confirm or discard information they might see to see if it's accurate?
That's a great question. And once again, there's so much information out there. I always say with any information that you're looking for, if you're looking for something factual on the internet, is consider the source. Mm-hmm. And I'm not here to say that every news outlet is perfect. There are imperfect people doing an imperfect job, but their goal is accuracy. Whereas I believe some people with information out there, their goal is manipulation. They have either a profit goal or they have some other goal, to their end. And when it comes to weather information, I'm a big believer in the National Weather Service. It's nws.gov. We also have, they have a branch especially for children called climatekids.com. And the American Meteorological Society, the AMS, also puts out a lot of good information. When it comes to television broadcasts, or when it comes to information that you see for a forecast on a daily basis, hey, I just want to know what it's going to be like tomorrow. Mm-hmm. Any local broadcast affiliate, you have great ones in Boston, We have great ones out here in San Francisco. You know, when the goal is accuracy, I'm off. When the goal is profit, and I don't want to name names for companies, but think about this. There are some weather companies that are out there that if they were to manipulate their forecast to be more severe so that they get more clicks, so that they get more revenue, there would be pressure within that company to make the weather more severe, because that means more money for their company. And there's to me, I have a philosophical problem with putting all of my eggs in that weather basket, because I've noticed over time that companies that do that, their forecasts are far more extreme than the reality actually is.
Yeah.
Whereas for myself as a broadcast meteorologist, and I'm not just tooting my own horn, I'm tooting the horn of the hundreds around the country, our goal is not to be extreme. Our goal is long-term accuracy. I personally feel that if I give a non-extreme forecast, because I truly feel the weather event's not going to be extreme, that you'll come back to me next week and next month because you'll notice that our forecast was accurate and wasn't quote-unquote crying wolf.
And that is really...
if you cry enough, you're going to go somewhere else.
Yeah, and I think that's... The example that you gave is for weather is a lesson that parents can teach kids about all sorts of media and all sorts of websites online, because there are, whether it's weather, whether it's news, whether it's celebrity, there are all sorts of sites that are just about putting clickbait out there. And,
Absolutely.
The old saying, if it bleeds, it leads. People have come to know that, tragedy attracts attention. And there's a whole lot of ways you can spin a story. And that can, if we can start teaching our kids to kind of look at that and look at the kind of content that we're getting from different websites, they can become more literate in terms of the internet and discerning what is and what isn't accurate. And
you just said the key word there. I think discerning is the number one word. It's not to just completely discredit something immediately, but understand the motives behind what you're reading, and then discern whether you feel that's accurate or not, and discern whether you feel that's a source you want to go back.
Absolutely. Well, one of the things that I love is that your motive in putting this Wow Weather series together is to inform kids and get them excited about weather, and also, I think, get them excited about science and helping them understand that they have the ability to understand science and to be involved in science.
Absolutely. Science, it can sound at times like something that, I'm too young for that. Science is astronauts. Science is something I'll do in college. And I disagree with that. I disagree with that assessment. There's no reason why a 4 or 5-year-old can't love space, or can't love weather, or can't love hurricanes, or can't love, snow. I'm a huge believer that you plant the seeds when kids are young and get them loving math, get them loving science, get them loving art.
Excellent advice. And you've shared with us some websites that we can visit to kind of confirm and learn more about weather. But where can we go online to learn more about Wow Weather?
Wow Weather, I have a website that's thankfully becoming more popular. I call it, the website is Paul Deanno Books, my name, and then the word books.com. But what I have as the main feature on that website is called Weather Wise for Kids, but rather than the word wise, W-I-S-E, it's W-H-Y-S. I'm trying to answer the whys behind the weather. So it's called Weather Wise for Kids.
Well, here's a question that I have as we're entering into the hurricane season. What do we need to do to be prepared? Do we need to worry? What do we need to do to be prepared for hurricane season?
This is a huge thing about hurricane preparedness. So if anybody's listening to this in a hurricane-prone area, take the hurricane forecast and crumple it up and throw it away. If you live in a hurricane-prone area, you need to be prepared to take care of your family for 2, 3, or 4 days without going to the store or without making a coffee or without, even power. That's something you need to do every year, because any one storm could hit any one place, regardless of what the predictions say.
Yes, absolutely. And if you are like me and you prepared for hurricane season last year and brought in a supply of food, it's time to change that food up, because that food's probably expired and you need to bring some new stuff in.
We always joke you can have you can invite like 20 friends over and have a really fun party with all your hurricane.
Yep, absolutely. We're going to have a big spam party here in Boston soon.
Spam is delicious. Spam can be fun.
Absolutely. I love spam. Well, we've been talking to the author of the Wild Weather series, Paul Deanno. Make sure you check out his website, pauldeanno.com. Check out that great blog, Weather-Wise, and you can also find the Wild Weather series on Amazon.com. Paul, thank you so much for being part of the show today.
Thank you so much. Appreciate the time.
Please be sure to join us for the next edition of the Reading with Your Kids podcast. Our guest will be Elaine Keeley-Kern. She is the author of Noasaurus. You know, I'm really excited we had a chance to speak to Paul Deanno today about his Wild Weather series. I'm really looking forward to speaking to Elaine about Noasaurus. I'd also like to take a minute to tell you about my children's books. I have 3 children's books that are available on Amazon right now. The Great Maritini. It is some people have called it a modern retelling of the story of the Good Samaritan. childrenspublishing.com called it one of the top 7 books that teaches kids kindness. I am really proud of The Great Maritini. It started life on stage. It's been part of my live educational magic shows for years. It's a really, really fun story about Sam, an aspiring and somewhat clumsy magician who learns that the greatest transformation of all is transforming feelings of caring into action to help another human being. I also have Real Magic. Real Magic shares a real life story of a moment on stage when something really magical happened. I invited a young lady up on stage, and when the audience showed her kindness, we experienced a kind of magic that is simply amazing. And my most recent title is Love That I Matter to You. This is a great story that you are going to want to hear your kids read to you over and over and over again. It's really a fun book. You can find all of these books on Amazon.com. Just type in my name, Jedlie, Jedlie, and you can find them on Amazon. I want to thank Paul Deanno for joining us today. I want to thank my amazing producer, Fatima Khan. I want to thank my beautiful wife. And most of all, I want to thank you. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us today. Thank you so much for taking the time to subscribe to the show on the iHeartRadio app, on Podbean, on Spotify, on Stitcher, wherever you find your podcasts. And most of all, I want to thank you so much for helping to make the world a better place. And you do that every time you read with your kids. I'll be looking for you in the next edition of the Reading with Your Kids podcast.